Welcome to a class this week. Like we mentioned last week, this week is not going to be a class on Parsha. We're going to spare Michael J because this week has a lot of talks about sacrifices. Although I will say that a lot of the sacrifices are flour and oil and everything else. This week we're going to talk about Purim.
That's a holiday, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a holiday, and we're going to speak about the lessons. I don't have extra books, but all the text, Dylan, all the
Sit to the side of the text.
yeah, but all the text we put on the screen.
Oh, okay.
So all you got to do is be able to see the screen.
Or you simply sit next to me and I
And so there's going to be some reasons why Purim is such a special holiday. Aside from the fact that we can drink and have fun and eat candy, cookies, and all the other good stuff. There's
worms? Gummy worms?
Gummy worms, yeah.
Gummy worms with CBD.
Exactly, yes. So one of the themes about Purim is it's not like a biblical holiday, which means you can drive and you can walk. It's kind of like it's a regular day turned into a
celebration.
A celebration. And that is what the question we're going to talk about for tonight is. How do we transform the monotony of our daily grind, imbuing the ordinary moments with profound meaning? So we all have times in our lives that are special, right? Parents spend time with their kids, whatever it is. But most of the time, you're getting ready for that special time.
It should be a semicolon, not a comma.
All right. The truth.
Just make sure you keep this up because this is very important.
Listen, Dylan, we want the class to
That was the
attract
last one. That was the only.
Yeah,
everyone.
okay, don't
Higher class people.
So we purposely put in mistakes.
Okay.
to be
This
sure
way,
you're paying attention.
all our clientele are,
Yes.
yeah.
That's what they teach you in Rabbinical School
Yeah.
101.
So,
Everything is
so in learning, for example, so a kid goes to school. So a kid will have snack and have recess and review. And how long in a lesson do you think a teacher is actually teaching new information? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes? The teacher will teach the kid, and then the whole class will review. Why? All in order to learn. So a lot of the things the kids are doing is just on the way to learn. So the answer is going to be is we have to reapproach, we have to fix our approach and how we approach our daily lives, because many times in life we have our holidays, right? We have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and all the other holidays. And then we have the special days, and we look at the regular days as whatever, just days to get to the special days. But Judaism tells us that there's no such thing as their regular day, and we're going to learn it from Purim. And we're going to base it on a text from a book in 1999, a long time ago. So a man named William Martin, he writes about parenting. This is text number 1, and he says, don't ask your child to strive for extraordinary lives. Such striving may seem admirable, but it's foolishness. Help them instead find the wonder and marvel in ordinary life. Show them the joy of tasting tomatoes, apples, and pears. I mean, if we're always looking for the next greatest thing, you never enjoy the present, the now. And we never enjoy the regular life. I remember there was one rabbi who wrote, when that little submersible exploded, or imploded, I should say. So he said, this is the problem. Everyone's looking for the next great experience. There aren't enough places on land. You explored the whole earth. You have to go, 13,000 feet, whatever it is, down, into the ocean. The problem is it's a sickness that we can't enjoy the regular. And we're going to learn from the Purim of the holiday of Purim, how do we do that? Okay. If you have any questions, feel free to keep them to yourself.
Okay.
No problem.
All right.
Corrections? Also yourself?
No, corrections you could say.
I've been there.
The slideshow is already made. All right, so
We have.
Purim is the one holiday where we celebrate it on multiple days. It's celebrated on 2 days, and can even celebrate. It can be celebrated on a total of 5 days. There's no other holiday like that.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Explain 5.
I explain. Don't worry, I explain. So Passover is 1 day, really. Hey, Stanley. Passover is 1 day. The Torah says if a person misses bringing the Passover sacrifice, so there's a makeup Passover. Okay, it's really a separate holiday. It's a makeup Passover. Then you have the mitzvah. You have the mitzvah of bringing a festival sacrifice, but you had some time to fill in that. No other holiday is there such a thing as it's this day, but you kind of could do it in different days. How does that work? So in Shulchan Aruch and the Code of Jewish Law, we learn there are different types of situations. You have a regular city, you have a walled city, and you have a village.
The sanctuary city is the 70.
That's New York City, Chicago. I'm not going there. San Francisco, we're not going there.
What constitutes a village?
So,
In ancient times, they were supposedly had sanctuary cities,
Yeah, but
a miklot, that's if you killed someone by mistake.
but it was a sanctuary city.
For murderers,
Yeah.
for people who kill inadvertently.
manslaughter.
But it was still a city, is your point.
Well, I think he's focusing on the sanctuary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the way that they're describing sanctuary today. You didn't get free everything. It didn't work that way. And you have to be in the city legally, by the way. So the way it works is like this. So in the Megillah, very quickly, Dylan, you remember the story of the Megillah? You remember the story of the Megillah, Stanley? No. Okay, so I'll go over the story very, very quickly. And because many times the Megillah is quite long and people fall asleep and you're
It's in
wondering,
Hebrew.
when's the rabbi going to finish? He promised me food and everything else. So very, very quickly, as quickly as I can do it, I mean, it is 10 chapters, I'll go over the story of Purim. So the first temple was destroyed in 586 before the Common Era. The Jews were exiled by the Babylonians. Babylonians were conquered by the Persians. A little while later, there was a Persian king. His name was Xerxes, or in Hebrew, Achashverosh. Thank you. And this Xerxes moved the capital
Noisy.
from Babylonia to Persia, in a place called Shushan. It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't make a difference. You can be in Shushan. And he moved it to Shushan. By the way, this place Shushan is you can go see it. They have the remains of Achashverosh's castle, and
What's its modern day name?
it's shoot. It's very similar. It's very, very similar. Itche has a book. Itche has a book. I recommend it to them. He has a book. It's called Persia and Purim and the Ancient Persian Empire or something. It's very interesting. I'll ask Itche if he could bring it to Shul. If you could bring it to Shul on Shabbos. It's a very, very interesting book. It goes through the story of Purim and archaeological dig sites. It's very interesting. Anyway, I used to have the book. Someone borrowed it, and I never saw it again.
It seems to be a theme with you.
Oh, listen, what are you gonna do? If that's their worst sin, you know. Anyway, so what happens
DeSantis
is,
didn't burn the book.
huh?
DeSantis didn't burn the book.
Yeah, exactly. He banned the book, exactly. And because
He burned it.
because we're law-abiding citizens, we had to ban it, exactly. To kill a Haman, so we had to ban it. Anyway, so what happened was Achashverosh kills his queen, appoints Esther as his new queen. Doesn't know Esther is Jewish. Then he appoints Haman. Haman is the descendant of a tribe called Amalek, arch enemy of the Jewish people. Haman comes up with this idea: instead of trying to kill the Jews piecemeal, which the Egyptians tried to do and others try to do, we're going to do it all in one day. It was a great idea. Because this way, Achashverosh doesn't change his mind. We're going to kill all the Jews in one day. Now, what he doesn't know is Esther is the queen. Esther goes to Achashverosh, begs for her life, and says, Haman is trying to kill me. Achashverosh said, wait, Haman killed one queen, now he's trying to kill the other queen. And Achashverosh decreed that Haman be hung. and he gives the Jewish people permission to defend themselves. And the 13th of Adar, the Jewish people defend themselves, and what was supposed to be the day of total destruction turns into a day of salvation. That's why we have the holiday of Purim. Now, in the story, Shushan is the capital city. On the 14th of, the Jewish people all over, Achashverosh was the king of the whole Middle East, all known populations at the time, right? 127 countries. And there was no place for the Jews to escape to. So they fought on the 13th of Adar, and they rested on they fought on the 13th, and they rested on the 14th. In the capital city of Shushan, there were a lot more anti-Semites, so they fought on the 13th and on the 14th, and then they rested on the 15th. So it was a decree that anyone who lived in a walled city at the time when the Jews entered Israel, the time of Joshua, they celebrated on the 15th. So if you're ever in Israel for Purim, God willing, we'll be there, Mashiach will come, celebrate Purim in Israel. So the way to celebrate Purim is you go to some other city in Israel for the 14th of Adar, then you hop on a bus and you go to Jerusalem for the 15th, so you have 2 days of partying instead of one. That's the real way.
Here we do 2 days of holidays instead of the one that they do in Israel.
Huh?
Yeah.
No, that's
I'm
biblical.
talking Rosh Hashanah.
Right, no. First of all, Rosh Hashanah is not a good example. Rosh Hashanah
Yeah.
is something else. Everyone does Rosh Hashanah, even in Israel. But that's because they mixed up with the calendar. That's something else. That's because they didn't know. What?
Sukkot, 1 day, 2 days.
2 days. That has to do because it's the biblical day, and everything to do with biblical, you have to side on the of caution. And he didn't know what day was Yom Kippur, so that's why you have 2 days. Here, it's not 1 day or the other day. If you're in an unwalled city, you celebrate on the 14th. If you're in a walled city, you celebrate on the 15th. Now, as the Jewish people moved into other countries and they moved into these villages far away from the capital, and they had to move to these villages because the closer you were to the capital, the closer you were to persecution. So, for example, Chabad, it was for 100 years or so, was in a town of Lubavitch. Lubavitch, till today, is a tiny town in Russia. Tiny, tiny town. Why did they move there? Because you're close to St. Petersburg, which was the capital before Moscow. And Moscow, then the Tsar and everything else would bother you. But these Jews lived in tiny towns, 10 Jewish families. Yeah, really, really, really. I'm telling you, you can drive through these towns today. You know, you grow up a child of Polish and Russian grandparents, and you hear these stories of these towns all the time. You think they're so big. I remember growing up, I thought Lubavitch was a big important city. It's a tiny, tiny town. Now, the problem is in a lot of these places, they didn't have a kosher Megillah, or let's say they didn't have someone who knew how to read it. So, logistically, you couldn't have. It wasn't only in Russia. This problem started even in the Babylonian times. This problem started of Jews not having the proper supplies. So they came up with a rule, a law that the Megillah, if you live in a village, could be read on the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th. Any one of these days. You with me? So, for example,
Why?
because let's say you didn't have a Megillah.
So what you're saying
So
is...
one
you'd be
second.
for one.
So let's take this year for example, okay? Purim is on Sunday this year. Let's say it would take more than a day or two to reach a communal place. So Sundays, you can't read the Megillah on Sunday because that means that you have to travel on Shabbos. And Friday is a problem. So we're fasting on the 11th of Adar. This Thursday is a fast day. So we're already beginning Purim theme on the 11th. So this is the earliest time you can read the Megillah. So look at the Gemara. Here we go. This is the Mishnah in check the Megillah. The English is on the board. It says the Megillah can be read 11th of Adar. Here, Stanley, you could be my shot. You're handsome enough. Don't worry about it. From the 11th of Adar, 12th, 13th, and 14th, 15th, not earlier, not later. Cities that surround the wall. Cities that were surrounded by the time of Joshua, and the reason why And the reason why we do that is because we want Purim to center around Israel, not Persia. So we don't really care if the city was surrounded by walls at the time of the story of Purim. The story of Purim is 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago, Babylonians knocked down the walls of Jerusalem. There were no walls around Jerusalem. Because this story happens, the story of Purim happens between the first temple and the second temple. The Babylonians didn't totally destroy the walls of Judaism, but they were breached, they were knocked down. In fact, if you look at the book of Nehemiah, I believe, Nehemiah is one of the later prophets. It's in the book of the 13 prophets. They talk about how they encouraged the Jews to fix the breaches and the holes in the walls of Jerusalem. Anyway, so it says villages and unwalled cities. Read it on the 14th. However, villages advanced their reading to the earliest market day. How so? The 14th falls out on Monday. Megillah is read on the day of the village and unwalled cities. It falls out on Tuesday or Wednesday. It goes through this whole thing. These days, a lot of people have their own Megillah, and everyone has their own thing, and now it becomes a whole fashion statement. People come with a leather case, a silver case. It became a whole thing. But in the olden days, there was one Megillah. I remember my roommate is from Scotland. So Chabad has this program called Merka Shlichus, where a community can have a rabbi full time. So once in a while, you send yeshiva boys to give them. So he went to these towns in the middle of Scotland somewhere, and I was in the Highlands of Scotland. There's nothing there. Not even a Motel 6 or a Waffle House pancakes, whatever it is, right? There's nothing there. Zero. Come to these tiny, tiny villages. And he goes to these people and say, I want you to shake lulav nesrik. They say, we have a lulav nesrik. My friend was like, really? You have a lulav nesrik in the middle of nowhere? You mean a lulav and a etrog?
Oh, okay.
He says, in Glasgow, where a lot more traditional, knowledgeable people, they didn't have. He couldn't understand. So could I see it? He brought out a lulav and esrog that must have been 10, 15 years old. It was all brown and withered, and said, no, we don't need a new one. They had no idea. How are they going to get a lulav and esrog? He said, no. And from then on, they made sure to send them a new one every year. People didn't have their own scroll, their own Megillah, so they would have to come together. And when would people travel? Market day. You worked in the field and you came for market day. So these villages could either read it on the 11th, 12th, 13th, or 14th. Now, you might think, so when did they celebrate Purim? They celebrated Purim on the day they read the Megillah. Right?
Okay.
I'm not sure why there's the pictures of, should be pictures of alcohol.
Chili peppers.
It's the market day, you're saying.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, well, which ties into our theme.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. If you want to know what Purim in the sugar is going to look like, but when I saw Purim celebrated, I was thinking should it be a bottle of vodka or whiskey or something, right?
Bottle of Jack.
I mean, exactly. I mean, I don't know. Obviously,
You got my attention again. Okay.
obviously, whoever made the slideshow doesn't know how to celebrate Purim. Maybe he knows how to make slideshows, doesn't know how to celebrate Purim. So this was to accommodate villagers. Now, you might think that this wasn't originally built into the law. So the Gemara says, no, this was originally built into the law. Nothing changed. The Anshe Knesset Gedolah, the men of the Great Assembly. Ari, you ever heard of the men of the Great Assembly?
No.
So when the Jewish people, after the story of Purim, when the Jewish people returned to the land, there were always Jewish people in the land of Israel. I mean, when the community started to come back in mass, led by Ezra. Ezra he started the Second Commonwealth, and he established a governing body. They couldn't have a king. The Persians didn't allow them to have a king. You know who the Persian king that let them build the second Beit English? This was Esther's son. Esther married Achashverosh. So there was a Jewish king of Persia, and he allowed them to Achashverosh dies very shortly after the story of Purim. And the building of the second temple doesn't happen right away. I mean, we read the book. It all happens It's like those crime shows. The crime happens in
Yeah,
7:02, 7:58.
48 hours.
Yeah, whatever it is, right?
Sure,
Yeah, they in real life it didn't happen that way. So yes, it's one book, 10 chapters, but actually it's over 13 years. So it takes time. But Ezra established a governing body. It wasn't just religious. They also they collected taxes and they could enforce the law. It was autonomous body, not a king. And he called these, and it was 100. This body, the governing body, was 120 members, 120 rabbis, and it was called the Men of the Great Assembly. So today's modern day Knesset in Israel, which we all know functions so perfectly, right? And they get along so well,
Just like our
and there's never need for new elections.
Never any dissension in the
Right,
ranks.
right. If you need to know when to make elections, there's a guy in New York who knows better than everyone else. So
Schumer.
yeah, so I couldn't resist, and so when a lot of the modern day Judaism that we have now comes from them. The Judaism in the first temple didn't look like it does now. I don't know if it's good. So meaning because it was all mostly temple based. The men of the Great Assembly, they're the ones who compiled the Siddur. I use the word composed because a lot of things they included in the Siddur wasn't composed by them. Like a lot of things are Psalms composed by King David. Some of the things were composed by them. You have Adon Olam, you have Baruch Sha'amar. And as time went on, things got. They said, the service is too short. They're going to the Kiddush too quickly. Let's extend.
Let's slow them down.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to have to do something about that.
Yeah. Maybe the rabbi wasn't giving a long enough sermon. That was it.
Early bird
No, he
specials,
lived
you
too
know what I mean?
close to the shul.
Yeah, exactly.
You know that story.
What you see in text 2b is this idea that the Megillah could be read on multiple days. It wasn't a new thing. That was originally built into the law. Like he says, and they prove it because if you look at the last line of text number 2b, to observe these days of Purim in their times. The word times is plural, not the time to do it, but times plural, which means the 11th of Adar, 12th, 13th, 14th, or 15th. Well, we do it on the 15th. Now, and this is represented. So let's say a person has to travel. Whatever it is, he has to travel. Now, obviously, you should always look ahead. A person always has to consult the Jewish calendar. I spoke to a few people if they're going to come to the Purim party. Oh, I didn't realize, Rabbi, I'm traveling. You always have to consult the Jewish calendar before you make plans. Because a holiday like Purim, you're supposed
It's a
to.
bit more complicated. It's a bit more of a complicated calendar to follow.
No,
but
it's not,
thank
because
Chabad.
it's automatic. You just load it on your phone. It's not,
Now it's on the phone. Chabad sends you a
I have to go to my
calendar.
Is that
PC.
correct?
Listen, Chabad, we try to take away excuses. So let's say
I
There-
can't
there are
take
no
medication
excuses.
in April because they needed to do it on Pesach. So I
See,
said
this-
no, so I have to wait
I'm,
an extra month.
my mother's cousin, Oliver Shalom, was a lawyer in Israel, and he told me sometimes one judge would refer to the secular calendar, the Georgian calendar, and sometimes another judge could use the Hebrew calendar. And this was the times before phones, and you always had to, look at the calendar to make sure that, the two judges weren't planning at the same time. Yeah. But I remember when I was a kid, we had in our house, my father was a cool guy, 150-year calendar. You go look
Wow.
ahead,
The Mexican did that too.
it was a book, 150-year calendar. Yeah. So it's called Jewish law says if you leave in advance, then you can hear the Megillah, early or late. All right. So the obvious question is why? Out of all the holidays, why is Purim not on this day? Is it, this day or that day, depending. Ever hear Jerry Seinfeld's joke about the milk? How do the farmers know? They don't say it's going to expire around. They say that's the day. Mm-hmm. Oh, don't screw with us. Do the cows tip them off while they're milking them? July 3rd, right? So how come the rabbis can't tell you this is the day of Purim? Instead, this is usually the day, but if something happens,
This is the day.
yeah, exactly.
Not tomorrow.
But they don't say like Passover. If you miss it, there's a makeup day. No, they say you can either celebrate depending on your circumstances. Obviously, ideally, you should celebrate Purim on the 14th of Adar, and if you're in Jerusalem on 15th. But there's leeway.
But we live in gated communities, so
But not
should be the
walled.
fifth. Well,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a wall.
Yeah,
Right.
so but it's walled at the time the Jews entered Israel, which is Jericho and Jerusalem. You ain't gonna find a big Jewish community in Jericho.
What's Jericho now?
Jericho is the West Bank.
Oh,
So I'll tell you a story. When I was in school in Israel, in yeshiva in Israel, this goes back to 96, 97, I can't remember. So my parents came to visit me, like parents do. So we went to, my father had a friend in some Jewish community in the hills. And my cousin was driving, and they just built in the 95, 96, 97, around there, a road that went around Jericho. Jericho is, let's call it a place that our kind are not welcome there.
We've been there
So
many years ago.
many years ago. So what happened was, this is before Waze, and my father was driving, and he missed a turn for the road that circumvents Jericho. All of a sudden, we're driving, and we see like the neighborhood changes a little bit, if you can understand. All of a sudden, we see these murals of Yasser Arafat and Palestinian flags and different things, and it was Friday afternoon. We're all ready for Shabbos, wearing hats, white shirts. My my cousin has a beard, and we realized that we made the wrong turn. We're driving through Jericho, and people looking at us like,
What are these people crazy?
no, is it really true? And all of a sudden, I remember there was hardly any lights. There was one light, and it was like yellow. My father started slowing down because it was red. All of a sudden, our mother screams out, "Yerachmiel, what are you doing? It's a red light. I don't care about the red light. You're crazy. You can't stop." So my father floored it, and then it really picked up attention, and we made it outside the city, and then we saw outside the city this gate and an Israeli flag, and we're driving fast. So now you can think the soldiers see a car coming fast.
Oh, gosh.
So all of a sudden, soldiers, they all come out like this, and we slow down, and they see guys with beards. They ask my father in Hebrew, "Where are you coming from? How'd you get here?" So they come back there. So what were you doing there? Why are you there? So it was a mistake. They were screaming at us and berating us, and
Stupid America.
yeah. But it was, it could have been the end. I mean, it was.
About to get shot.
We could have got
You
shot.
could have been coming back there.
So the problem was, so in theory, if you had a city in Jericho, you would celebrate. The problem with Jericho, by the way, is this is totally off the subject. When Joshua went into Israel with the Jewish people, the whole city of Jericho fell. The walls of Jericho fell. One of the greatest miracles. And Joshua made a vow: no one's allowed to rebuild the city of Jericho. So the question is, the city of Jericho now, is it the same Jericho? Jerusalem, we know.
Oh, Jericho used to be here, now it's here. That's
No,
all.
but the question is, does this law apply? See, Jerusalem we know, because we know where the temple stood, and Jerusalem is Jerusalem. But Jericho, now if a Gentile builds Jericho, you can live there. No problem. A Jew can't build Jericho. There was actually a guy who was a non-believer. And Joshua actually stated what the punishment is going to be. The vow, if anyone builds Jericho, he's going to lose his children. And I think he had 10 children. He lost his first one with the beginning, with the stone. What do you call it? When he laid the foundation stone, and he lost his last one when the city was completed. Yeah. Anyway, totally off the subject. Okay. So let's look at in order to understand why. Let's look at Purim. And we're very, very off the schedule over here. Purim.
Why is this day different from me?
Exactly. Purim was. Gotta be
push
careful.
that. Don't push that. Let's get
Stanley,
to
gotta be careful. You're the closest to the microphone. Purim was a holiday that, in many ways, almost wasn't. So if you look at text 4a, after the whole story, Esther writes to the sages and says, "I want you to make Purim a holiday." And the rabbi said, "No." Why? because we don't want to rub it in the face of the anti-Semites. Yeah, we survived. You have to realize it wasn't like the Jewish people were still under Persian rule. They didn't gain independence. This isn't the story of Hanukkah, where they can do whatever they want in the country. Now they were still under Persian rule. The rabbis were afraid to rub it in their faces. So Esther said, "Don't worry about it. I already wrote the story in the chronicles of the kings of Persia and Media, so they know. It's not like they don't know about it. Fine." And so Purim goes from a holiday it almost wasn't to a holiday that will always be. The Gemara says, it's in the Gemara. No, the Midrash says that all the holidays in the future will be nullified except for Purim. What's the purpose of a holiday? Purpose of a holiday is we get caught up in the day-to-day grind, so we need to stop to reconfigure it, right? Whatever the theme of the holiday is, right? So we have to take a step away from our regular work, and but Purim, the whole idea is that God orchestrated the natural order. Remember when I told you the story of Purim before? Saying, did anything happen there all supernatural? Ahasuerus killed his queen, appointed a new one. But that's exactly the miracle. The God orchestrated the natural events. So it goes from a holiday that almost wasn't to the greatest holiday. Number two, Esther tells the rabbis, write down the story. So the rabbis say no. Why? Because in the story, who's the antagonist? Haman. Where does Haman come from? Amalek. So it says if you look at text number 5, it says here. It says Amalek is only supposed to be mentioned based on a verse in Proverbs. Amalek is only supposed to be mentioned 3 times, and if we write you down, it's going to be 4 times. But basically, they realized that one of the times is not. It's a connected. So in the book of Exodus tells the story how we were attacked, and then the book of Deuteronomy, it's a mitzvah to wipe them out. But they're connected. So once is the story in Exodus, and then 1a is Deuteronomy. Second time is in the book of Samuel, when Samuel commands King Saul to fight Amalek, and then the third time is Esther. Fine. So again, we almost didn't have the Megillah. You could have gone straight to eating. Okay. Instead of the book that almost wasn't, we have a book that will never be abolished. It says all the books of the prophets will be nullified. Because, do you know, you ever heard that the Torah was really supposed to be shorter? Now we have 24 books. What is Lord of the Rings? It just goes on and goes on.
You gotta fill up a whole year.
Exactly. Did I tell you not to kill? I mean it, don't kill. In the 24 books of the Bible. So it says in Talmud that the Torah was going to be the 5 books of Moses and the book of Joshua, and that's it. 5 books of Moses to teach us what to do. The book of Joshua to tell us that the land of Israel, tell the whole world, the land of Israel belongs to the Jews, and that's it. What happened? Well, the Jews started bowing down to idols, and everything started going all screwy. So all those lessons from the books of Jeremiah and all that, where the Jewish people don't listen and they repent and all that, that's not going to be relevant anymore. Not going to need that. But the book of Esther, which tells you how God is in nature, that's very relevant. Number 2. That was number 2. Number 3. What's this holiday called? Purim. Why? Because Haman threw a pur. What's pur? Pur is ancient Persian for lottery. A lot, lottery. What's the Hebrew word for lottery? Gorel. How come the holiday is not called by the Hebrew name? Why is it called by the Persian name? Isn't that weird? Call it by the Persian name?
Isn't that because they gained their autonomy in Persia?
They didn't get autonomy. They were still
not independence, but they had their own rule within Persia. I thought that was
no. They gained their own rule later, like 13 years later, in Israel.
There is what do you call it? The word precedence for that. The first words of the 10 Commandments is Egyptian.
Very good reference. Not exactly the same. No. But that's a great reference. We got a scholar here, but it's not exactly the same. No, it's a good question. Why? But it's well, the One of the reasons why Chassidus explains is because Mitzrayim, Egypt, was the lowest of the low. And the idea of the Torah is that it can penetrate and impact the lowest of the low. That's one of the reasons Chassidus explains why the first word of the Ten Commandments is Egyptian. But it's a little bit different. Let's look at text number 7. The Alter Rebbe explains. What's the idea of a lottery? Lottery is beyond logic.
It's chance.
It's chance. It's beyond logic, right? It's luck, right? If let's say who should get it? Me, you, whoever it is, you want it, right? And you can give arguments why you should get it. I should get it. We say, you know something? Let's do a drawing. The whole idea of the drawing is it defies logic. So the second paragraph over here. Therefore, here you go. Therefore, they call these days Purim, which means Gorel, Haman's Pur, an attempt to co-opt God's blessing in defiance of all reason through a lottery failed. That means Haman tried his best to have a reason to destroy the Jewish people. So you know something? If you actually think about it, if you go through the story, the Jewish people kind of walked into Haman's trap. In the beginning of the story, the Jewish people attend. Achashverosh makes a massive party, 180 days, and then he wasn't done. He had another additional 7-day party.
I've got them.
What?
What? I said I've got them beat.
You got the you sure you're not Persian? You look Persian, yeah. So why do the Jewish people go to the party?
Have a good time.
Have a good time. Am I still recording? Yes. The reason why they go to the party is because let me pick this back in so pick less ambient lines. I don't know. The reason why they go to the party is because they have to show the Persian we're proud Persians. They're basically telling God that when we were in Israel, we're Jews. Now that we're in Persia, we're Persians. What do the Persians say? What the society always says to the Jews: we don't want you. They walked into Haman's trap. So logically, they kind of threw off God's divine protection. And God said, okay, you want to play that game? All right, no problem. So, but afterwards, what a lot of people don't know, Alter Rebbe writes, it brings this out at length, the decree was only against the Jews who practice Judaism. If the Jews would have adopted the Persian lifestyle, they would have been saved. But no, they didn't. It says they jeopardized their life for one God. So the primary joy of Purim is that Haman's Pur dissolved and the transcendental divine will focused exclusively on the will, on the Jews. So once again, we have here the theme of Purim is revealed. The name Pur, which seems to indicate that Haman has control over the Jewish people, and everything is going to go backwards and go bad for the Jews. That name shows that no, God really protected the Jewish people and God saved the Jewish people. So what we have over here, instead of something being mundane, it turns into holy. So now we can start understanding why it is that you can celebrate Purim on 5 different days. Passover is one holy day. You can't go and it's a day that's strictly above nature, right? God took us out with all the 10 plagues and yada yada yada. You were at my house by Passover, right? Yeah. When we do the 10 plagues, right? We have the bags of blood and the ice, right? And the red the
Did you
fake
have the jumping
frogs.
frogs?
of course.
The fake frogs.
We got a whole big bag full
I
of
got
frogs.
another bag for you this
Yeah.
year.
But you weren't by my Seder last year. Last year I bought fake ice, and we by timer we had the lights go out for darkness, and by blood we had the light bulbs turn red and one of these blue, and we had we put fake.
Many still around, so where's the 10th plate?
Yeah. Anyway, and we had bags of blood, the fake blood, and we had I bought fake balls of ice. It's great. Yeah.
Tell you.
Yeah.
Very entertaining.
Yeah. So I said you got to make it entertaining.
You gotta go there once.
Yeah. Nothing will beat when I did Elijah the prophet. My kids are still scarred and talking about that one.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
How'd you manage that one?
So when it came time for Elijah the prophet, all the kids went to the front door. I snuck around the back. I came to the front and I was covered in a tallis. I said, "Oh, I'm Elijah, my kids." Till today, Mendy has PTSD from it.
And you're proud of yourself.
It says, yeah. Okay. So the idea of Passover is one special day, over. But then, and you can't. It represents divine the supremacy and everything else. The idea of Purim is you're taking the regular and you're making it holy. That's why Purim could take one of 5 regular days and make it holy. But now let's learn the lesson. Let's finish up quickly. We got to do Marv. So remember we said before there are 3 types of places: walled cities, unwalled cities, and villages. What's the difference? A walled city has all the commodities. Everything is in the city. When you're in the city, where do you get things from? You get in the supermarket. I think I was from Brooklyn. You think I know what a farm looked like? Back when I went to school, we had social studies. A thing called a farm.
Hey, Prospect Park.
Exactly.
used to be a farm.
Exactly. What's a farm? Who supplies the city with everything? The people outside the
guys
city.
that drive the trucks.
Exactly. Right. In the people in the unwalled cities. In the walled city. Now, why is the city walled? Because it's an important place, right? Obviously, the capital, whatever it is, it's an important place. I remember when I went to Washington D.C. with my family, and it was so hot. Just to find the store that sold a drink, there's these massive blocks. Everything is concrete. Everything's coming from outside. You see over here, what's it called? Encyclopedia. Cities are far from self-sufficient. However, all that depended upon close relationship to rural communities and their hinterlands. Renaissance Florence established such greatness in part because of the auspicious relations that it maintained with sharecroppers. You ever been to Florence? It's all stone. Nothing there. We supplied them with wine and everything else. So you have the elites in the city. You have the people who are outside the city, in the farms outside the city, in the cities or towns outside the city. They're in a close relationship to the city, but then you have the people in the villages. They're way away. They're distant, right? They know about the city. They've never been there, but they're to them.
Pumpkins.
Huh?
Pumpkins.
Pumpkins. Yeah. For to them, they don't have dreams of going to the city. They just know the city's a big place, all the important people, and that's all they know.
I feel like you're talking about my family a lot.
Called out.
Right. I never said the word redneck once.
No, but somehow I felt it.
Right, exactly. So the Rebbe explains what's the difference. The Rebbe is going to explain like this. It says a tzaddik, a righteous person, is like a person from the walled city, right? He's elite. Then you have another type of Jew who's not a tzaddik, he's not a perfectly righteous, but he knows about it and he helps out. And then you have the villagers who not such educated people. They don't dream of becoming a tzaddik. They have nothing to do with the righteous person. They know to do the mitzvot. They're not complicated people. Let's look what the Rebbe says in text 9a. Oh, there you go. Oh, so here material. You have the material differences and the spiritual differences. People who live in walled cities can devote themselves completely to God. Right? They have everything they need. The spiritual task of people in outlying cities is to be surrounded by worldly temptation and nevertheless use these resources for holy purposes to provide for greater things. Thus, they create the city a home for God. They don't need to plow, plant, and wait until the crops grow. They take the pre-prepared, ready-made resources and turn them into a home city for God. Villagers must plow and soften the hardened soil, the corporeal world where God is not visible, to make it sprout and grow. So in the city, in the analogy, the city, obviously you see godliness. You go to Jerusalem, you can't help but realize it. And even in the outskirts of Jerusalem, you feel it. But the people who are in the villagers, you think they're far away, and they don't know much, but it's these people that are something very, very special, because they might not know, but they know they're Jewish. They know this is what you do. They have loyalty. You go to these guys who are voting for Putin. Don't kill me. You go to these Russian villagers. Don't tase me, bro. You go to these Russian villagers, right, who are voting. You think they know what's going on? I think they have.
They know if they don't vote for Putin, they're going to be in trouble.
Right. They know Russia's important. But they're simple people, but they're not. But there's a beauty in that simplicity. You have these Jews who are not necessarily know a lot, or they not because they're stupid. Never had to have the privilege of a strong Jewish education. All they know is this is what the Torah asks. This is what we do, and they're ready. They're ready to do it. They're not overly complicated. This is the most mundane person, so to speak. I gotta get a better system here. They call them. You can call them the most mundane people, or the lowest people. But going back to what we said before, Purim is about godliness entering and permeating this slow level. So who's better, the scholar or the businessman? On one hand, the scholar, you can argue, is better because he's the one learning Torah. But what does God want? What God wants? Godliness up there? No, God wants godliness down here.
No, but that depends if the businessman conducts himself in a proper way.
Obviously, we're assuming that he conducts himself in a proper way. So what's a greater holiday? Passover, that God broke all the rules of nature, split the sea, yada yada yada. Does that really impress you? That God splits the sea? Yeah, it's impressive for us, but is it impressive that God can do that? Can manipulate? He's God. What do you mean? If he can't do it, who can? Right? So God made water flow. So for a couple hours, he said, water, stand up straight. God made water rain. He made bread fall. I mean, he's God. He's the Almighty. He can do,
Omnipotent.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. So recognizing that God can break the rules of nature, that's not big. But to recognize God in everyday life, that's greater. So to live in Jerusalem, surrounded by the holy city and be spiritually inspired. Thank you. It's Jerusalem. You're supposed to. How about being spiritually inspired in Pembroke Pines? To act ethical in the synagogue. Congratulations, you have a head on your shoulders. Act ethical when you're in business. You have a much greater impact. And when you can go out into the world and act like a proud Jew and do what the Torah says, you make a much greater impact. And this is what look at the last note. This is from. Here you go. This is what skipping ahead. In text number 10. This is what this is a story from the 5th Chabad Rebbe of Shalom Dever. He had a chassid, a follower. His name was Elia Abeller. And he was a simple man, meaning there wasn't a great scholar, didn't know a lot, but he was a businessman. And the Rebbe told him, the Tzemach Tzedek told him, he said, I'm jealous of you. Because you go out into business, and when you exchange words of Torah, and you exchange a lesson or something else, you have an impact. Because people see you as a proud Jew. So the fact that the rabbi wears the yarmulke and tzitzis and is a proud Jew, like the saying he's supposed to, like the old joke. The parent goes to the rabbi and says, and tells him, my kid gone crazy. What do you mean? He's wearing a kippah, tzitzit, he puts tefillin on every day. He's totally insane. The rabbi says, but I do that every day. Do you think I'm crazy? No, but you get paid to do it. He actually means it. Right? Meaning the people who are not the rabbi have much greater ability to have an impact on the rabbi. Because people tune the voice of the rabbi out. Because he's the rabbi. Of course he's going to say this kind of stuff. Of course he's going to act that way. He should, right? But when a regular, quote unquote, regular person acts in a refined way and can share a Torah thought and say, why am I acting this way? Because there's a God, and he's watching over us, and he has expectations from us. And there's seven Noahide laws for the Gentiles, and commandments for the Jews. There are times, for example, that a guy will say no to do a mitzvah when the rabbi asked him, let's put on tefillin, light Shabbos candles or something else. But when a friend or someone who's not a rabbi comes in, says, maybe you would like to put on tefillin, maybe you want to start lighting Shabbos candles, maybe join me for the Purim event. Lower is not actually lower. Lower means you have impact, you have the ability to make a much greater impact. Okay, so how can we transform the monotony of the great daily grind, imbuing the ordinary moments with profound meaning? The trick is to pause, to realize that there is no ordinary moment. No such thing as an ordinary moment. Every moment you have a chance to imbue with holiness. So why did the sages, an exception to Jewish practice, make multiple days? Because that's what Purim is. Purim means transforming ordinary, or seeing through the facade, the veil. What you think is ordinary is really potential for greatness. There's always an opening to bring God, Judaism, and holiness into our seemingly mundane lives. Okay, key points. Multiple dates for Purim. Villagers cannot read on the 14th, can read it 11th through the 15th. Purim consists of multiple elements that can convey the same theme, turning the ordinary into something extraordinary. The material differences between the walled cities and unwalled cities and villages represent spiritual differences in levels of godly awareness and connection. Despite a village's distance from the city, geographically and spiritually, it is the villagers who are most dependable and capable of finding holiness in ordinary places. Not only that, the city can't exist without the villagers. Tzaddik can't exist without the regular Jews. Like in the story of the golden calf. When the Jews served the golden calf, what does God tell Moses? You got to descend from your high status, your high level. Because the only reason why you're up this high is because they're Jewish people. The Jewish people sinned and went down. Well, it causes the descent. Purim teaches us to find extraordinary holiness in the ordinary, mundane things, places, times, and events. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a very good week. Hope you join us on Shabbos. Parsha Zachar is the most important reading of the year. We read about Amalek, and afterwards we'll have a Kiddush, and of course Sunday. We have to have the Megillah Saturday night. We have the celebration on Sunday. Hope you join us. All the best.
And you finished
Stop.
on time.